Slavery and poverty are not God's will. Today's focus: in the end, there will be no slavery and no poverty. Find Foods, 7 minutes a day, 1 Bible a year. Grace and peace, everyone. Today, our reading brings us to Deuteronomy, chapters 13 through 16. Our key verses: however, there need be no poor people among you, if only you fully obey the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 15. Deuteronomy here speaks of the many things that will happen when they are in the land of Canaan. So, what are God's commands? The commandments had been given before. Now it is the second generation. Therefore, the commands are to be reiterated. In the end, there will be no slavery and no poverty. This means the land of Canaan is the promised land promised to be given to us. In fact, it also foreshadows the eternal life in heaven. Eternal life is a state of complete freedom and total abundance. Therefore, there will be no slavery and no poverty. In this world, we use the earthly land of Canaan to understand heavenly eternal life. Now, slaves and the poor do exist here, but their condition is temporary. It will not last. How do slaves come to be? For example, through debt or similar reasons, a father might sell his children as slaves to pay off a debt. And poverty? It leads to borrowing from others. There's a saying that if you're born at the bottom, you'll die at the bottom. There's no way out. It's like saying the class of the poor and slaves continues on and on, with no hope of ever turning their situation around. Yet the land of Canaan that God gives is not like that. It has a time limit. When the time comes, all debts are to be cancelled. The bondage of the slave is to be released, and freedom is granted. So these things are temporary. Let's continue to unfold this. God's will is for us to live in freedom and abundance. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. The blessing of the Lord brings wealth, without painful toil for it. Therefore, this freedom and abundance are God's eternal purpose for us. The book of Deuteronomy is about the reiteration of the commands and the preparation of the second generation to enter Canaan. The structure of Deuteronomy. Today we come to the sections on worship, canceling debts and festivals, worshiping the one true God, canceling debts, and freeing servants. Yes, when the time comes, debts must be canceled. Then it moves on to speak of the festivals. Let's look at the passage. A Hebrew servant is to serve for only 6 years. If any of your people, Hebrew men or women, sell themselves to you and serve you 6 years, in the 7th year you must let them go free. And when you release them, do not send them away empty-handed. Supply them liberally from your flock, your threshing floor, and your winepress. Give to them as the Lord your God has blessed you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. That is why I give you this command today. Deuteronomy 15. Now, if a Hebrew is sold as a servant, his term is limited to 6 years. The 7th year is the Sabbath year. Therefore, we understand, labor is for 6 days, service is for 6 years. In the 7th year, everyone finds Sabbath rest. This applies to everyone who works, whether you are the owner or the servant. You must rest on the 7th day. This is not just for the free, but for the servant as well. Otherwise, exploitation would have no end. We also need to consider a question. Why would someone be sold? For example, one's own children, or even oneself. Selling oneself to pay a debt may arise from sympathetic reasons, such as illness, accident, or other needs. Yet, it could also stem from irresponsible causes. Whatever the reason, the service lasts 6 years. In the 7th year, the servant is to be set free, and not only set free, but the master is to give generously to the servant. Just as the Lord your God has blessed you abundantly, so you are to give abundantly. Remember that our fathers were slaves in the land of Egypt, and the Lord redeemed them. Therefore, we are to treat our servants in the same way. In fact, he is not to be treated as a slave or a piece of property to be bought and sold, but as a hired worker with a fixed term. That term is 6 years. In the 7th year he is to be set free, and the master is to give generously to him. To break the cycle of slavery, say a man is sold to me to pay a debt. If I simply let him go when the time comes, won't I lose what he owes? But God's way is different. God blesses me abundantly so that I, in turn, can bless him abundantly. God often chooses not to give directly, but to give through his people. Then I can partner with God in his work. And in that act of giving, I myself experience God's love, and that love then flows between us as brothers and sisters. The love and wisdom of God are truly amazing. So, a Hebrew slave serves just 6 years. In the 7th, he is to be set free. And the same applies to the servant, only 6 years. And the same for the poor, only 6 years. The poor need to borrow. At the end of every 7 years, you must cancel debts. This is how it is to be done. Every creditor shall cancel any loan they have made to a fellow Israelite. They shall not require payment from anyone among their own people, because the Lord's time for canceling debts has been proclaimed. Deuteronomy 15. Why can't the poor break free? Because they're buried under a mountain of debt. Old debts aren't cleared, yet they keep borrowing more. It's a cycle of debt they can't escape. That's why God himself steps in. By his own command, he breaks the chains of this destructive cycle. You may require payment from a foreigner, but you must cancel any debt your fellow Israelite owes you. Deuteronomy 15. So it is different. From a foreigner you may require repayment, but if you have loaned to a brother in the 7th year, you are to cancel any debt. Our brother, God's child, Jesus Christ, on the cross, has already paid all debts. He paid ours, and he paid his. Therefore, when the time comes, we are to release one another. Yet, from a foreigner, you may demand repayment, because their debt has not been forgiven by Jesus Christ. This is part of its spiritual meaning. How does God break the cycle of poverty? When we see a brother in need, we might think, if I give, won't I end up with less? But God's economy works differently. His way is abundance. God gives me more, so I can give him more. This is how God's heart is revealed, that the one who had much did not have too much, and the one who had little did not have too little. People have the ideal of the world belongs to all. The original intent of socialism was also good, yet human beings cannot achieve it. God achieves it. The key is that God takes the initiative. This initiative means God gives you more. He blesses you first. Then, with that blessing, you in turn give to others. In this way, the cycles of slavery and poverty are broken. Therefore, a Hebrew in poverty also has only 6 years. However, there need be no poor people among you, for in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess as your inheritance, he will richly bless you. If only you fully obey the Lord your God and are careful to follow all these commands I am giving you today. Deuteronomy 15. Poverty and slavery both stem from a place of lack, and that is not the heart of God, because our God is a God of abundant provision. The reasons behind a person's need are many. Some are heartbreaking, and some are the fruit of poor choices. Most of the time, we can't know which is which. But God's clear desire is this: there need be no poor people among you. How? Through mutual support, through generous provision, through practical love. This is the will of God. So this is a preview of what is to come in Canaan. Since slavery and poverty are not God's will, how do slavery and poverty arise? For each of us personally, we need to reflect on that. But toward others, we are simply to do what God calls us to do. As the Lord gives you more, you also can give more. Slavery and poverty in the land of Canaan are not God's desire. Reading Guide to Deuteronomy. The book of Deuteronomy is about the reiteration of the commands and the preparation of the second generation to enter Canaan, set in the latter part of the Mosaic Age. Chapter 13. The Signs and Wonders of False Prophets. We overcome false prophets by loving God. Chapter 14. Clean and unclean. The tithe. Chapter 15. the release in the 7th year. In the end, there will be no slavery and no poverty. Chapter 16, the 3 annual festivals. The land of Canaan is the promised land, foreshadowing the eternal life to come. Today's focus. In the end, there will be no slavery and no poverty. Breaking the cycles of slavery and poverty. God gives me more, so I can give more. Blessed is the one whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. Fine food 7 minutes. See you tomorrow.